Yo, what's good, y'all? My name is C.Shreve, aka C.Shreve_the_Professor, aka your host for Who Needs a Classroom. Welcome to our podcast. I think official episode 3. So let's jump right into it. Today we're going to talk about freestyle. What is a freestyle? What are some different perspectives on freestyling? One of the reasons this was currently pertinent to me was that I wrote up kind of maybe an opinion type paper. I don't know, something for a zine that my man Doc IT is putting out, and it was kind of about my experience preparing for the end of the week MC series that goes on in New York City. This was something I was scheduled to do back in like March, right before the pandemic kind of shut everything down. And it's been kind of in limbo ever since. They've been doing events online and things have been going on, but I'm kind of scheduled to perform at the next one whenever we have it, but it hasn't really happened. So at some point, but the whole time I kind of been preparing freestyle wise, which is an interesting thing to just keep kind of in limbo with. So I talked in this essay or a little opinion paper about, my experience here and what it's like to train yourself, to competitively freestyle, which kind of goes against some of the viewpoints I might have had originally about freestyling anyway. So kind of want to talk about some of those things because when you write a paper, it's kind of fresh in your mind. So I thought it'd be easy to, do an episode about that. So kind of historical context for the word freestyle in rap or in hip hop. Most people would probably go to the off the top meaning, thinking somebody is improvising or thinking somebody is, truly coming up with this right off the cuff or off the top. And I think historically there might be in hip hop, before that meaning kind of took over and maybe became more of the dominant accepted meaning. I think the meaning is more of kind of a non-conceptual, style that's free or style that's kind of free of, classification, that type of thing. So a little bit kind of out of left field, a style that you really couldn't pin down. So I think there's both those perspectives. If you break the word down, you can kind of see those different things going on there. I mean, a style is something that's honed in, something that might be nuanced and might have some specifications to it, whereas something that's free, that could be going all over the place. If you apply that free thinking to your style, what does that look like? If you really go kind of free and go all over the place and then apply some style to that, what does that look like? So depending on which way you weight it, more in the free or more on the style side, might determine where some of your choices go artistically. But they both have value, both those perspectives. Somebody can come up and drop a freestyle that's not off the top, and they're not really they're not fronting. They dropped a freestyle. There's search the internet, you'll find all kinds of examples of freestyles that are not off the top. So I tended to lean to off the top historically. When I came up as a performer, if I couldn't improvise, I think it would be very difficult for me to have gained confidence as a performer, because if I was rapping, I never rapped over backing vocals, and if you were doing that and you forgot your words, I guess you could kind of fall back into those words, but there would be no freedom to just improvise. If you did forget your words, you couldn't just start rapping about the front row. And I historically might feel like in my head maybe this rhyme isn't they're not responding to this rhyme the way I want them to, and so I'm gonna improvise. I'm gonna create some different moment that wasn't going on before. And so I liked that ability to freestyle and to improvise throughout my set, and kind of became known for that at certain points in my career. And so that ability to improvise, and I think that's a little bit more of the more widely accepted meaning, is kind of that off the top side. But some of us also apply that perspective to our writing. And so we actually write those freestyles where it's like, it's not a concept about, this equals this. It's just kind of all over the place, kind of a non sequitur, kind of just keeping it moving and kind of clashing words and language and wordplay. But, it's more kind of, a free style. So I think both perspectives require you to think on your feet. If you go to, a cipher or a place where you're going to have to rap and kind of jump in, then whether you're bringing that rhyme that's kind of out of your pocket or whether you're improvising, both will require you to think on your feet. Because if you go there thinking you're going to jump in with your pre-written rhyme, you probably, if you're well prepared, should have a few. And so you might have to choose the right one, or at least understand the moment, understand what needs to be done to keep this moment going or to take the moment where you want to take it. And that, even if you're not freestyling, that requires situational awareness. It requires your ability to kind of see what's going on and see how you can use that to your advantage. So both of those require this thinking on your feet, and they both require, this whether it's this non-conceptual viewpoint out of left field or whether it's off the top improvising improv class, playing off something. Either one of those is going to require you to think on your feet. So it kind of hits some of the same spaces, even though some of it's different as well for how you define freestyle. Along the lines of situational awareness, knowing what's going on is knowing who you're talking to. That's the audience itself. Are they familiar with certain slang? Are they familiar with if you're talking to a group of people, what do they have in common? What about the moment can be exploited to show them that we have something in common? So those are ways I think you can demonstrate essentially that you are speaking to the moment and that you're grabbing this now that we're all experiencing. And I was talking about how the reason this was pertinent to me, and it was kind of from this end of the week competition. And it's a competition, so you want to do well. Excuse me, I gotta get a drink. And so if you're going to do well against, your quote unquote opponents, or really just your competition, you're going to have to show that you're the best freestyler or you're the best at this craft. And so that gets into proving, how well you're doing. Show and prove has always been a part of hip hop and of MC wordsmithing. And so that's always been there. But in the case of freestyling, for me, if I'm in a cypher or if I'm just rapping with folks or if we're, just hanging out, freestyle is truly kind of this, or historically for me was this idea of just kind of being free to say whatever I wanted and take it where I wanted, and really kind of trusting that process, kind of, some folks might say, kind of blacking out. And training for end of the week was very different than that, because I didn't feel like I was training to go in there and just grab the mic and do my thing, take it wherever I wanted, because it has a structure, it has a format, there's constraints. And so those constraints directed me to want to do well. So if I'm pulling objects out of a hat, I don't just want to talk about it for a second and then, let my brain wander off and show how freely I can think. I might want to take this object, if it's a pair of headphones or whatever it might be, and then flip it a couple different ways and show them that I can use this constraint and freely associate around it. And that's a little different than just showing how wild you can be. When you're trying to show them how situationally aware you can be, that's a different level of things. So I found it interesting to kind of assess how do you kind of prove you freestyle. What classic ways might be talking about what somebody's wearing in a battle, or talking about the room or something current events wise, something that everybody saw in the news type of thing. Common Sense or Common is excellent at doing freestyles on tour. I've seen him live and a couple of different cities, and on YouTube, of course, a bunch of times, do freestyles kind of about the city. And he's basically, I think, prepped himself well about the city, some street landmarks, some things they're historically known for, some sports teams, that type of thing, and then peppers that into some maybe current events and some off the top stuff that he's, some current punch lines and just bars that he knows work in whatever time frame, it is. And so it really has the audience kind of wowed. They really feel like, oh man, how did he come up with that? I mean, how did he know about that about us? And those, having those current references and the things that are appropriate for your audience really go a long way. And when you think about it, it's actually less, in some ways of a, like this out of the air, off the top freestyle, and more preparation. And that's actually okay and really cool. So it's all right that it's that the magic trick had some practice to it, essentially. It's a stage that we function on up there when you're rapping. Teaching as well. And so you can I saw it happen in math class teaching biostats. Basically I would do these, show them how like random sampling would work and show them, numbers. And sometimes the numbers would just work perfect. Didn't always happen, but sometimes it would be a magic trick. They would be like, how did you predict within this, certain deviation with this tiny sample size? And it was, kind of a math trick, but it was kind of, if you knew what you were doing, you could set it up and sometimes knock it down. And shows are like that for rappers. You can, how did he know how to freestyle for that 30 seconds and the beat drop back in? How did he do that? Well, it's like a magic trick. He practiced it. He kind of orchestrated that. So, the proving aspect, I think, of freestyling is interesting because sometimes that might mess folks up. They might really want to prove it and try to come so of the moment off the objects around them and feel constrained by that so much that it actually, it just gets in the way of their ability to keep moving forward. So it's interesting how you can, play with these different perspectives. Let's see. I was writing this for my man, Doc IT. He and I are both a part of the Society of Spoken Art, which we refer to as SOSA. This is a rappers guild. It's a beautiful thing that we kind of assess what rappers do, what kind of comes naturally to some of us, what doesn't, what's technically going on, who some of the pioneers of this were, really kind of historical context of how MCs, the craft of being an MC has come around, which of course involves hip hop culture, is inseparable from that. And it also gets into ideas of how does freestyling, your approach to, free association, or how you come up with ideas and how you put them together, how does that apply to life? In our group in SOSA, the group of ITs that I'm with, our group is called Full Circle, and we have a kind of a metaphor we're introducing to the world called life is a freestyle. And so it's applying these ideas of freestyle. What does that look like in your life? If you apply that to your educational journey, if you apply that to anything, your day-to-day approach, how you kind of move through the world, all those things. And so I think when you apply the freestyle mindset, kind of this, it becomes more of an intuition, I think, as you talk about it, as what we're describing. If you're applying, a big life choice and kind of trying to freestyle it, I don't think you're just off the top in it. I don't think you're, just trying to have it be random. But you might pick the style that's best for you. Your whole life might become this style that's very much your own and was freely chosen, but then becomes, might become very much your own wavelength. That's a defined style of its own, and maybe is less free in some ways, but then can really define itself and really kind of figure out its nuances. And so this idea of intuition can be described in a lot of different ways. When you kind of know the best choice, because some folks will say, the gut feeling, I trusted my gut, or I just knew it was best, I could feel it, or any number of ways you could say that type of thing. I think especially the gut one. Sometimes folks separate gut because it's more visceral, it's in your body. They separate that from something in your brain. And I really think they're kind of the same. The intuition and the visceral gut feeling are kind of one and the same from where I'm sitting. Really, it's kind of, in both cases, it's kind of your body or your brain, depending on which way place you're feeling it the most. It's the summation of all of the information you have available to you. And so if you don't know why this, it's like maybe a high school senior and they pick the right school and they don't know quite why it's the right school, but it just felt right. I couldn't, tell you why, but it felt right when I was there, and when I thought about it, it just is the right choice. They can't figure out why that is, but they kind of just knew what that is, I think, or when your gut tells you I need to go this way, or gives you kind of a hard signal that you need to trust. It's kind of like your supercomputer spitting out the kind of binary signal, like do this, or as a rapper, I might experience is of picking the right beats. If I have a studio session and I need to kind of, maximize my time, I might go through 5-10 beats. I need to pick a beat and go with it. And that requires sometimes, trusting your gut, which one feels right. And then, going with that. And that's really, I think, like I said, the supercomputer type thing. It's like, it's the net kind of conclusion of all these different choices that you've made, that some are very conscious in your mind, some are very, very unconscious. Sometimes you don't know why something doesn't feel right, but some part of you had the forethought that that's going to end up going the wrong way. Maybe some part of you remembered we've been here before. Maybe you didn't consciously remember that, but some part of you was looking out for yourself almost and said, okay, we've seen this before. You know better. Let's not choose that. And somehow you couldn't quite articulate that in your, active conscious thoughts. But some part of you said, red light, I shouldn't go that way. So I think it's really, really important to trust your intuition. Some folks never rapped a day in their life, but they can use this intuition idea. If you're a rapper, don't forget to use your intuition. A lot of us learned to rap just by finding the flow, kind of trusting where it was going, and just really, feeling it. And sometimes when you get, a few albums in, a few mixtapes in, a few tours in, you start overthinking it and forgetting to lose yourself in the flow and use your intuition, to use your, kind of to feel things and to get lost in those different wavelengths, which is a little different than trying to, sometimes trying to find that best style isn't the freest way to approach it. Sometimes you need to kind of just lay back a little bit and, kind of find what it would look like if you didn't think so hard on it. So, that was main things I wanted to talk about. I put FTO over there. Life as a freestyle is kind of, I think, as we said, a metaphor we're trying to introduce to the world. My kind of call to action when I first started kind of putting out music was FTO, or Free the Optimist. And I called it a call to action. And it's kind of from the same point of view of this freestyle idea of saying that, in the case of FTO, I was saying that, the world may be this one way. It may get you jaded. It may have a lot of negative aspects to it, but you as a human have the choice to look at it how you want. And from my perspective, you should try to look at it in a positive way so that you can do your best, and so that you can find a way to be transformative to it, because then you can, have an impact. That's just my perspective, my take on it. I realize over time, as you define your idea, as you brand something, as you move forward, it becomes maybe less free, more narrowed, even though it's an idea of free, become free, optimize yourself. If you're, kind of developing a doctrine, or you're developing some point of reference, a lot of times it ends up becoming maybe a little bit more, not narrow-minded, but as you're developing your styles or style or whatever your perspective on that is, maybe it becomes less free because you're kind of defining those nuances again. And so I think the balancing act of finding the perspective between, letting go and finding your way. It's kind of that little balancing act, which is much of what life is about. So check out Life is a Freestyle. There's a real cool YouTube page. We have a bunch of discussions with neuroscientists and dope rappers and educators and IT workers, and we got it all covered. But hip hop historians, we got superstars. I think Lupe Fiasco is on this Friday, so check out Life is a Freestyle podcast. Or we don't have it on podcast form. We have it just on YouTube and on IG. So check out the IG for the live. It'll be up on YouTube probably over the weekend as well. But every Friday, Freestyle Friday, we do the Life is a Freestyle. We're basically discussing, how that approach to life looks, and if that metaphor resonates with y'all. So it's one that definitely resonates with me, because it's an approach I've applied for a while, and it's taken me some interesting places. It's helped me to develop some interesting skills, and try it sometimes. If you don't know what to do, trust your intuition. Find a way to kind of freestyle. Just if you don't know what to do, kind of wing it. Find a way to just find your way through it. Sometimes you make great decisions that way. So, thank y'all for listening. Who needs a classroom? You do, I do, we all do. Make sure you go vote. If you are over the age of 18, you should go vote. Or 18 plus, 18 or over, you should go vote. Let your voice be heard. This election matters. Go back to, I think, episode 1 if you need some reasons as to why. But y'all be safe out there. Take care of yourselves. Please wear a mask. I think we hit an 80,000 new cases day the other day. That's not a fake number. So don't let some political bias end up disavowing you to the facts. So science is a real thing. You want your health to be valued. You want your loved ones to be around. Their health is paramount. So please take care of each other. Please wear your masks. Please distance. Please follow signs if you're in stores. Do the right things by your neighbors. Look out for one another. Go vote. Y'all know. Peace.